Welcome to the first slugfest about the limited series and TV movie categories for the 72nd Emmy Awards, hosted on coldderby.com with Luca Giliberti and Zach Laws, and I'm Riley Chow. And, we're 9 months into the 12-month eligibility period, and we have seen almost none of the contenders because the networks are holding them all for the last possible minute. We'll see if that backfires and it turns out that people just don't have enough hours in the day, or if somehow all of them get in. So HBO alone has The Third Day, The Plot Against America, I Know This Much Is True, and The Undoing coming out in the next few months. FX has Mrs. America, Fargo, Devs. Netflix has The Eddy and Hollywood coming out the same week, essentially, and they also have Stateless. They also have Self-Made. National Geographic has the third season of Genius coming out. Apple has Defending Jacob. So we'll see if anything that we've seen so far gets a nomination in any category. I think at the top of our odds, we've got Watchmen and Unbelievable. So how much do you feel like those two are just a placeholder since we've seen them and we know that they are of high quality? Or do you think that they can actually go the distance and win this thing? Luca, or Zach, sure.
Luca, you go first.
Thank you. I think Watchmen is a lock. I think it performed so well at the Guilds, even though that was in the drama series category since it's submitted there as a drama series. But I think the show will have enough overall respect to get into the limited series race. It's Damon Lindelof. It's Regina King. I see this show performing very well across the board. I do believe that Unbelievable is getting into this race. I don't feel very confident about it like I felt maybe 2 months ago after, it got all those Globe nominations and Critics' Choice Award nominations, just because we have so many shows premiering in the next few months. But that might also be the problem, is that there are so many shows premiering in the next few months. You already mentioned just the HBO shows and the FX shows that are airing. There are so many other shows that will be airing in these next 2 months as well, and it might be very difficult for voters to actually watch all of them before they start marking off their ballots. Unbelievable came out in September, so it already has established support. It got those Golden Globe nominations. It got Critics' Choice nominations. It got a lot of Guild nominations, so we already know that people like this show a lot, which could help it, with all these other shows premiering in the next few months, especially if voters don't have the time to sit down. Plus, it sit down and watch all of them. Plus, its subject matter is very important for today's society. The 3 female leads give incredible performances that as of now, I think all 3 will be nominated. And as of right now, I just don't see a scenario where it misses because we just haven't seen enough of these shows that are premiering. Now, if all of them are hits and all of them, are these big, huge zeitgeist shows like Chernobyl and When They See Us were last year, then I think we will have to rethink all of these predictions, because then we're in for something that I think is very unprecedented at the Emmys.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why Watchmen and Unbelievable lead our odds right now is because they're the only two that many people have seen. Because everything, like you said, it's waiting until, the very end. And they're trying to capitalize on that, zeitgeisty thing that happens when whether you're like a Chernobyl or a When They See Us from last year, that were the very last things to premiere, basically, and ended up with the lion's share of nominations. And Fosse Verdon, too, as well, I think came out in the springtime, if I remember. Yes, of course it did. And again, those 3 shows were the ones that really dominated the nominations. But at the same time, when you look at something like a Watchmen, which dominated the conversation while it was on, I think that can still find its way in. Certainly, Regina King could possibly win another Emmy for it. And Unbelievable, I mean, that show did really exceptionally well at the Globes and at all the different guilds. I think that you could still see that one manage to get in just off of acclaim alone. But again, we don't know. We don't know how these other shows are going to fare because, I mean, I've seen episodes of Hollywood, and I don't think I can.
Yeah, Zach, I was going to say you do know. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about what we don't know about Hollywood.
I think that it's impeccably made. I think it's going to dominate the craft categories. I don't know what the dollar amount was on the budget, but Netflix seems to have spent a lot to recreate the Hollywood of post-World War II. And I think that you're going to see possibly Emmy nominations and perhaps even wins for people like Jim Parsons, who has a very juicy role, Patti LuPone, Holland Taylor, Darren Criss also is prominently featured. You know, it is Ryan Murphy after all, so you wouldn't think anything else. But in terms of it winning limited series, I don't know yet. And the reason I don't know yet is because it hasn't premiered on Netflix. We haven't seen how the public has reacted to it. I think what all of these shows that win limited series benefit from, whether it's People versus O.J. Simpson or Big Little Lies or Fargo's first season, Assassination of Gianni Versace, Chernobyl, these are all shows that people loved and talked about week after week after week. And so we're going to have to see which one of these limited series. Maybe it ends up being Watchmen, after all. Maybe it ends up being Hollywood. We don't know yet. Maybe it ends up being something else that we're not even thinking of. I mean, I'm sure that this time last year, a lot of people really did not have Chernobyl on their radar just because they were looking at all the things that had come out before it and all the things that were coming up. And this little show with, very few stars about a Russian power plant exploding didn't seem like it was Emmy bait. But again, we shall see.
Yeah, we've gotten a few reviews for the Eddie that have come out, and it sounds like it's maybe a bit more experimental and less accessible than I had anticipated. But at the same time, last year we had Fosse Verdon, which I think maybe in hindsight was actually in second place, given how it performed at the Globes and the Guilds and at the Emmys ahead of When They See Us. So it could still do very well, even if it's not going to be the one that wins. In terms of HBO, I'm going big on The Undoing because I feel like that'll be their main push. It's by David E. Kelley and Suzanne Bier, and it stars Nicole Kidman, Hugh Grant, Donald Sutherland, and Edgar Ramirez. I think it also helps that they only have that 4-person cast, so I feel like it'll be easy for them to get all 4 of them in since they're spread out across 3 categories. But they also have a couple other shows coming on at the same time, so maybe those will be better received.
And I think another show we really have to pay attention to is Mrs. America, which will actually air on Hulu, although it's produced by FX. It's actually the show I'm predicting to win limited series. At the moment, it stars Cate Blanchett, who I think will rival Regina King for that lead actress trophy. It's a big female cast. That's another cast where I'm not sure who to predict in supporting actress and supporting actor. There's so many different possibilities, but I think it's the type of show that will be that water cooler type of show that dominates the discussion when it premieres in April, and it airs at the perfect time because it does start in April and ends in May. Again, it's an early prediction. We could see so much change. We didn't predict Chernobyl and When They See Us to be in the number 1 and number 2 spots until way later during the season. But that's definitely a show I have on my radar. And then we have other shows. We have Little Fires Everywhere premiering on Hulu in just less than 2 weeks, I believe. That's another show that could definitely break into this race. And as Riley already mentioned, we have the Eddie and so many other contenders. What I'm interested in is how many shows will not make it into the limited series categories, but will dominate, for instance, the acting categories. I think we will have many of those this year. And even if, for example, Little Fires Everywhere does not get into limited series, I could still see its two leads, Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon, definitely getting in. I could see The Undoing being snubbed in limited series, but still getting all its 4 actors in. I think that will be a consequence we'll see this year of this incredibly stacked field, with only 5 of those series, presumably then, getting the limited series nomination.
I'll just say that regarding Watchmen, like I have it in my predictions just because it has done so well at the precursors. You know, it got nominated in the drama categories. It invariably won drama categories, which are generally harder than the limited categories. But yeah, I don't understand how it has done so well in the race, given its genre factors, how incomprehensible it is. But that it has gotten this far is really a testament to the industry embracing it. So I think that's very exciting. All right, I don't know how much more we can actually say here without just saying, none of these have come out.
We don't know anything.
Another one is The Good Lord Bird, starring and produced by Ethan Hawke on Showtime. That one was scheduled to come out already. Then that date came and went, so presumably they'll get it back onto the schedule in the next couple months. We'll see. What else is on your mind, Zach?
I just, it's really hard at this point to even say, I think this actor is a lock in this supporting category, because I don't know the extent to which they're even in the show that we're talking about. You know what I mean? Because I haven't seen it yet. I guess, it is nice that it seems like at this point there's a wealth of possibilities, which of course can't be said on the TV movie side. And if it's even worth talking about the 7 or 8 contenders that we have listed in there.
Well, Chris found more, so now we're at 11.
Well, hey, there you go. All due respect to those movies, which I've only seen one of them so far. And I don't think it's going to win just because of how poorly it's done in precursors. That would, of course, be El Camino.
Yeah, but that is the only one you've seen. I think that speaks well to its potential, because I feel like that's how Black Mirror and Sherlock have won the last several awards.
That could be true. I mean, I guess its closest competition is the upcoming HBO movie Bad Education, which had a festival run last year and ended up being bought by them. I mean, what's interesting about El Camino is that I think a lot of people assumed that Deadwood would win as a sort of part of that residual goodwill from the original run of the show, and it ended up being beaten by Black Mirror, a show that had maybe a quarter of the nominations that Deadwood had overall. So it's really a crapshoot sometimes what you think they're going to go with. I mean, the Breaking Bad name still has some cachet, I suppose, and that might be enough to get it over the top into a win. But all the acting and writing and directing races are usually dominated by whatever limited series are in the running. So it just becomes a question of, did this TV movie get 3 tech nominations or 0 tech nominations? And maybe that'll be what makes the difference in my predicting it.
Now, do you recall what happened at the Producers Guild Award this year in the TV movie category? We had Black Mirror nominated, of course, Deadwood nominated, and El Camino nominated. But the winner was Apollo Missions to the Moon, the Nat Geo, documentary. So they rejected the field. The Emmys, I don't think they allow documentaries to randomly compete in TV movie.
It was I think they either didn't watch any of the TV movies or thought they were voting for Apollo 11. But yeah, I mean, it really is. I don't know why they still have the category. Maybe the transparent musicale finale will win. I don't know.
What I'm very interested. Yeah. What I'm really looking at is Troop Zero, actually, which stars Grace McKenna and features Allison Janney and Viola Davis, which, of course, are two very big names. I'm actually quite surprised it's submitting here and not at the Oscars, but it's an interesting turn of events, and I could see it getting at least the nomination just because this field is also a bit barren. I mean, we have American Son predicted to get nominated, which is based on the play that Kerry Washington did very recently, but it's not a TV movie that received the greatest of reviews. And it's still in our, I'm not sure if it's top three, it's in our top three even for best TV movie. So I think yeah.
It's locked.
Yeah. I think that says everything you need to know about this race. I think we have two clear front runners in El Camino and Bad Education. I think it'll be between those two until the very end.
And we also have A Christmas Carol ranked 7th, which FX doesn't normally compete in this category. They're much more prone to compete in the limited series category, which is where this show is going to end up. But it got such poor reviews that they actually burned all 3 episodes off in a single night, and thus now it is eligible in TV movie. So picking Lemonades at 11th there. Good on them.
We also have the Transparent musical finale in contention. So, and we know Transparent used to be beloved by the TV Academy. So if there's any residual goodwill left, that's an easy name check. But I don't think it was that well received, and we know the last few seasons haven't been very well received with the TV Academy, so I'm not sure it makes it in. But this is, even though we have so few contenders in our prediction center, it seems like such a wide open, such a barren field at the moment, like always, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, so I think the only things left I have to say are I want to name drop The Loudest Voice on Showtime, since that did reasonably well in the Winter Awards, and I'll also mention that Julian Fellows has 2 miniseries coming up, Belgravia and The English Game on Netflix. So more potential big players. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to seeing all these limited series so I can really make my predictions.
I think this is the strongest limited series race we have seen in a long time. I mean, last year was already very strong. 2017 was incredibly strong. 2016 as well. But I think this it's much more competitive than it's ever been. I think a lot of people are gravitating toward limited series just because you can tell a story in just 8 episodes and just be done with it. And I think that's where the quality really is at the moment. And I'm very excited, as you said, Zach, to see all these limited series and to see which ones, are anointed as the must-sees of, March to May. Mm-hmm. Another one I'll just mention is The Plot Against America, which will be on HBO, has a lot of star power, has John Turturro, Winona Ryder, Zoe Kazan. So, and it looks like a big, huge, visual, a show that could do well across all categories, and it's an
very prescient because it's about the rise of fascism in America at the end of World War II. So it's more so what would happen if it's based off of a really great Philip Roth novel about what would happen if basically World War II, Nazism came to America and in the form of Charles Lindbergh becoming president. Kind of makes you think of where we are right now. So maybe that could be the one that everyone's talking about. We'll see.
Yes. All right. We shall see if David Simon can win his first Emmy in 20 years for The Plot Against America. And in the meantime, you can make your own predictions on goldderby.com and also subscribe to our YouTube channel where we will have interviews with all the contenders in the next couple months.